Hi everyone. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Casey Gohl. I'm the New York State Rules Interpreter for cheerleading. Before Bill and Josh get into the scoring system, I just want to make sure you're aware of the resources that you have available. NYSPHSAA redid their cheerleading website, and so there's a lot of really good resources on here now. So I just want to show you some of the things that are available. First, if you look at the rules page, this is now specific to cheerleading rules. So it gives you information here on where you can purchase hard copies of the book or electronic copies of the book. If we weren't in a school, this would go to YouTube for videos that are the 4 judges modules. And then down here we have one of the 2 coaches modules. I would suggest you watch at least the 2 coaches modules. So I'll be talking at the end of our session today about safety. So we'll talk about the importance of knowing those rules. But if you want a really good overview of everything involving cheerleading safety, you can watch all 4 of the judges modules. There are also some links on here. First, we have a link to our NYSPHSAA safety webpage. There are some videos on there and some examples that I'll be referring to when we talk about safety. We also have cheerrules.org, and this legal and illegal videos are actually the Georgia State Cheerleading website. There's a lot of really good videos to show you what's legal and what's not. Back on the main page, we have a coaches and judges resources page. Each of those are really similar. There's just a couple things on the judges that's just specific to them, like a scribing page. So let's take a look at your resources. So you can see here we have the registrations for today, but we also have the score sheets, and something new this year is we're offering an electronic score sheet. There's directions on here if you are a competition director on how to actually use this, because when you pull up the score sheet, you're not actually going to use the one that's on there. You're going to make a copy of it so that it's your own score sheet. But what's nice about this is you would set this up, and there's multiple ways to do that. You could set this up, full implementation would be where on a panel you would have 2 judges working on a single laptop or tablet, another pair working on a single laptop or tablet, and then the safety judge working on a laptop or tablet. They pull this up. You as a competition director can actually have this up on your own device so you can monitor the scores going in throughout the day. What you would do ahead of time is you would put in your team names and divisions, and then that would auto-populate on all of the other sheets. So judges 1 and 2 will be working together to complete this score sheet. 3 and 4 would work together to complete this score sheet. And then the deductions judges, or judge, would work on this one. And there's some really nice safety features in this. So for example, I saw last year there was a mistake made by a judge where they were supposed to put a score out of 5, and they accidentally put like a 6.1. If you put a 6.1 in this on a score that's only out of 5, it's going to tell the judge that it's a mistake, and it'll take the score out of there and give them a warning. Also, it prevents some mistakes happening with safety judges because they don't have to calculate anything. They simply put in the number of bobbles, the number of falls, the number of drops under each section, and it auto-calculates all of those features. And then when it comes to the results, there's a detailed results sheet with every single item in this score sheet. So at the end of a competition, you wouldn't be getting back a paper sheet, but as soon as the results are announced, the competition director will have downloaded a PDF, and then they can send this right out to you through email. So you would all have access to all of those scores from the day. This is optional, so another way to use this is you could just use it in your tally room. So if you use this for your entire competition with the judges putting it in, you no longer have to pay for a runner. You no longer have to pay for a tally person. But if you still want to use a tally person, instead of the judges doing it on this, they can still do it on paper, and then your tally person could just put it in all the scores here as well, so that you make sure that everything is correct when it comes to the totals. And you may see if a competition chooses not to use this, you may see judges using this as their tally sheet. So there's lots of different ways that this can be used, and if you think of anything that you would like to add to it or improvements, we are definitely open to suggestions. A couple other resources on the sheet here. If you want to follow along with today's slides, if you haven't already downloaded this, we have the slides that you're going to be seeing today on this webpage. And then once we have this video done, the video will also be on this web page, so you can find that right here. And then both Josh and Bill are going to be talking a lot about progressions, and so we are building a library here that Bill has created a Dropbox of demonstration videos. So this will help clarify some of the elements that are on the progression sheets that you have for both stunts and pyramids. The last thing I want to talk to you about is this questions and clarification section. So you'll notice sometime next week there'll be about 4 or 5 important clarifications that we just wanted to make sure everyone knew across all the different trainings. And then here you already have up a section that says have a question, ask here. So either during this training or after this training, if you come up with a question, you can submit it here, and then the subcommittee will work together with Bill and Josh to answer those questions. And then where it says answers to frequently asked questions coming soon, that will be a link to that Google spreadsheet with all the questions and all the answers. So it's a live update of those. Any questions? All right, well then I'm going to hand it over to Bill to talk about cheer.
So welcome everybody. My name is Bill Ahern. I'm from the national office in Memphis, Tennessee for Varsity Brands. And up here with me is Josh McCurdy, who is also from the national office. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to kind of start with an overview of why on numerous things. And then we'll get into the specifics of the score sheet. We'll go through each piece of the score sheet, starting at the very top. And we'll go through and kind of hopefully give you all a really good idea of how you as a coach can look at the score sheet, use your strengths and weaknesses to your advantage to do the best you can on that score sheet, okay? And again, if from time to time we'll stop to give you all an opportunity to ask questions, and that's when you'll do that, all right? So a little bit about myself and Josh. I have been with Varsity Brands for about 35 years, and I started out with a UCA background, but now I work with most of the brands underneath Varsity in some capacity. My main focus of interest is with safety, our curriculum, stunt technique, how our judges judge, designing score sheets and training. And I also work with the National Federation at the national level as well as the state level. In particular, myself and Jim Lord work with the NFHS in regards to developing their book, the safety guideline book. So my background is a lot of the physical and the safety. So you'll hear me reference safety quite often today and talking about execution and progressions and that kind of stuff. And hopefully this score sheet is set up where you will focus on that more as well as being the coach. Okay, so that's my background. Josh McCurdy is the head of VROC. He also is very big in our curriculum program as well as training of all of our officials that we use at our nationals, regionals, etc. And both of us together probably work with 15 different states in varying degrees on helping them with their state championships, whether it's like the Pennsylvania, the PIAA, where we run it from start to finish. Every aspect is run by Varsity, to a state like your all's where we were asked to come in and we're there to help, to give suggestions, and to help with the training. So that's kind of the background that we have here. One thing I want to make really clear to everybody, and I've been telling all the training sessions this. I know that when I show up or when we come into a state and we say that we're from Varsity, that there are people who are not happy that we're there for whatever reason, okay? Here comes Varsity. They're going to take over our state championship. They're going to make us do this, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. We're not here to take over anything or to make you do anything specific. Okay? When we work with state associations, we do it because they've asked for our help since we are considered an expert in this field, and sometimes the help is specific to whatever they need for their state. So when I met with your all subcommittee this past summer, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, I did not come in and tell them what to do. I was there as a resource for them as they started looking at what they can do to make your scoring system easier, less complicated, and more efficient. And then when they have questions, I would give them my expertise or my knowledge, especially in regards to how other states may be handling certain situations, whether it's how you design your progressions list with points assigned to it and all that kind of stuff. So that's all we're here for. Okay, we don't want to take over any of the state associations. I want this to be your state association championship, and I want it to be what our goal is. We hope that it's the best experience for you all and your kids that you're coaching. Okay, So, and besides, you know what? And we're nice people. Varsity, we're nice. We're from the South. We talk slow and it's relaxing. It's a relaxing way to talk. So, look, I got a little more slangy there just for you, just on the word talk, just to give you an idea. All right? We'll edit that part out. All right, so here we go. First thing I want to do is we're going to talk about some of the goals and some of the things they were trying to accomplish. So this summer when your subcommittee got together, they did an awesome job. They spent a lot of time. They basically took everything that you all were doing and they said, let's kind of start over and see what we can do to make things more efficient, to make it easier, to make it more representative of what we want cheerleading to look like, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So some of their big goals initially were, obviously, to make it a positive experience for the constituents, for the teams that are in New York. Also, they wanted the training to be consistent across the state. And so this is our 5th training session. I have been at every one of them. Josh has been to the first 2 and this one, and Medea Butt was at the 2 last week with me. So basically, we've had a group and then Casey's been at all of them. So we've had this small group that has been together doing the training sessions. So hopefully, the same message has been given to all parts of the state. Now, obviously, there's still interpretation things and people will do things, but in general, it's been a consistent message about what the score sheet is, what it's asking for, and how you can do well on it, or as an official, how you use it to put teams in order. Okay, so that was some of their goals. Specific to the score sheet, number 1 was to try to make it more simple. Your all scoring system was cumbersome, to say the least. Okay, and I've dealt with. There's other states that are very difficult. They have a very difficult, complicated system to judging. Your all's was definitely one of them. And one of the goals, one of the things about that is sometimes the process bogs down the product being the scores and the placement of teams. But the process was so labor intensive that instead of officials being able to sit back and watch the routine, get a feel for it, and tell you how you did, they're checking and looking at all this stuff, and it was cumbersome. So one of the goals was simplify it to some degree while still leaving certain tools in place to help the officials or to help you all better understand how to put the routines together. Okay. Another goal with the way this score sheet has been done is that hopefully it's going to allow you all as coaches to feel like you have the freedom to emphasize your strengths and to hide your weaknesses. Instead of going, I have to do this because it's telling me I have to, you have a little more freedom. So now it's going to be, we like to do this and we're good at this, so that's what's going to go in my routine. Okay? One of the major things I want you all to hopefully you'll get out of this mindset to whatever degree you're in it, is to not just focus on difficulty. And to me, that is one of the biggest problems with cheerleading over the last 5, 8, 10 years is this development of everybody focusing on difficulty. And that's driven partially by how your score sheets are set up. But when you just start focusing and driving and being driven by difficulty, then you're putting your kids at a higher risk of injury. You're not keeping them in as safe a position. Sometimes it's not even as much fun, and you lose creativity and the visuals and all these things that have made cheerleading so popular for the last 20, 30 years. So hopefully when you see this score sheet and we go through it, you'll understand that execution should be driving what you do. The execution of the hardest things you can do. That's how you need to look at this. Not, I have to do the hardest thing because it says I have to get a 9, okay? Because no matter how many times you put up 5 double ups, if 3 of them fall, it's not entertaining, okay? There's nothing entertaining about it, and you're going to score bad because of the falls, and so that double up that you pushed for and you said I have to have only hurts you. But a single up or great ground up liberties is probably going to help you more. And you'll see how because of the overall score, the execution score, the way the grids are set up for your difficulty scores, okay? So please kind of rethink about how you consider difficulty and really try to focus on this execution part. But hopefully with the way the design of this new score sheet, it's going to allow you more freedom to be creative and to really think about execution as what should be driving your team, okay? Is everybody good with that? Awesome. Let's move on to the next. So here's basically how it's set up. So there's two score sheets, and for lack of a better word, we're going to call one the cheer score sheet and one the music score sheet. But on the cheer score sheet, those judges will also be officiating tumbling and dance. Yes, got it right. Tumbling and dance. Okay, so there is some music pieces on there. The other two judges will have pyramids, partner stunts, jumps. Okay, so the two officials will work together. They will talk. They'll watch it. We talked to them about, tips on how to watch a routine with two people. They will talk about everything they saw, and they will give your scores appropriately. All right, the other two will be doing the music part that they're watching. Okay? Now, one thing, and then that equals 95 points. The last 5 points will be generated by each of the officials, the 4 of them, will score your team what they think the overall score should be out of 5. And then those 4 scores will be averaged, and that will be your final out of 5 points. Okay? Does everybody understand how that's done? So you have 2 and 2, they generate your scores, then each of them decides out of 5, and they average that, and that's the last piece. Everybody good with that? Okay. So, the setup of the score sheet. Probably the biggest thing when I was talking to the subcommittee that I felt like they needed to do is, and it's kind of a point of contention around the state, which is okay, but because different people have different opinions on the actual cheer. Some people love having a cheer, all the way to people who hate having a cheer and think it should be all music. Okay? The setup of the score sheet, though, regardless of the amount of points that you're going to assign to cheer, the main point that I tried to make to the subcommittee was, if you're going to have a cheer involved, put all those points in one place. So the officials know exactly how much the cheer is worth and how to score it, and you as a coach know exactly how much to dedicate to the cheer, exactly how to set up the cheer, so you'll have an idea about what you're getting out of it. As an example, last year, if you looked at your score sheet, I would go, if I asked the subcommittee, I would say, if I stunt in my cheer, where are those points at? And they would go right here. And I'd go, well, if I stunt in the music, where are they? Well, it's still right there. That was confusing to me. So if nothing else, by organizing this score sheet differently, I think it's going to help you all put your routine together, and it's going to help the officials be able to officiate it better. Okay? So the cheer part is 25 points total. All right? 20, and we'll go over the specifics on that in a second. Now, 2 other things about this, and then we'll get into the specifics of each category. Number 1, I'm also going to use these 2 terms quite a bit. Competitive cheer versus a callback cheer. Okay? Does everybody know the difference? Kind of what I'm talking about. Competitive cheer usually has like motion sequences. The pace is a little bit faster usually. Callback cheers tend to be a little bit slower. At times, at some point, they'll ask the crowd to do something, whether it's to yell back a word or what have you. Both styles, for lack of a better word, will work on this score sheet if you do what the score sheet's asking. And that's what we'll get into the specifics of here in a second. So it's not dictating that you have to do a certain type of cheer or you have to put in a certain amount of whatever. It's not dictating any of that. But from your standpoint, regardless of your style that you want to use or that you like or that you're comfortable with, you still have to make that style do what these categories are asking for, which we'll get to in a second. Okay? So the score sheet allows for that, and 25 points total. Also, the cheer is 30 seconds minimum. Now, from a choreography standpoint, let's say you're a person who doesn't like doing a cheer, and you'd rather have absolutely as much time as possible in the music section. So I'm going to do exactly 30 seconds because that's my minimum amount. I highly recommend you don't do that because teams have a tendency at actual competitions to speed up. And if you set your cheer right at 30 seconds and it hits 30 seconds every practice, and then you speed up and it hits 28 seconds at the competition, you get a 5-point deduction because you didn't get to 30 seconds minimum. So I would set your cheers at around 33 seconds minimum. That way, if you do speed up, you have a little bit of a cushion there, okay? So don't just go right to that 30 mark. At least go to about 33. That gives you enough cushion to play with. And 3 seconds is not going to kill you over on the music side. But being under by 2 seconds will hurt you on the cheer side because you'll get a deduction, okay? And the last point about this, this is extremely important for you as a coach. Let's say you decide, or you put, you got 8 standing back tucks. So in the cheer, you throw 8 standing back tucks, and that's all you're tumbling. Okay? You're like, well, I'm good because I got it in my cheer, so it's in the routine. You're going to get a 0 on tumbling if you don't have it in the music. So in particular, tumbling and jumps are the two that coaches will forget about. Most teams stunt in both anyway, so you've got that covered. But jumps and tumbling in particular, if you don't have it in music, you're going to get a 0. But you don't have to have it in the cheer, because the cheer doesn't dictate any of that to you. Does everybody understand that? Don't think in your mind like you've been officiated in the past where the tumbling in the cheer just goes into the big tumbling block. It doesn't. It's in the cheer block, and now you've got nothing in the tumbling block unless you put it in the music section. Okay? Everybody clear on that? That's one of the most important things I want to make sure y'all are clear with, because you're the ones that are putting together your routines or working with your choreographers. Okay? Everybody good on that? And you'll see why in a second. It makes perfect sense because the cheer doesn't tell you to do anything. Okay? So you're not dictated in the cheer part. All right? So let's get started with the first part. And if you have a copy of the score sheet, you can pull it out as well. Unfortunately, I'm getting old, so I have to put these bad boys on to read. So, but it does make me look smarter, don't you think? Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so here we go. Cheer portion, we're just going to start at the top of the list and go down the sheet. Cheer portion, 25 points total. There are 4 categories in this. Okay, we're going to go through each of them. The first category is presentation of material, and it says encompasses energy, facial expressions, volume, pace, and clarity of words, use of formations for crowd coverage, and correlation of words to the school's name, mascot, or colors. That's how you get those 5 points. Now, what does that mean? First of all, I'm going to take the last sentence. Correlation to name, mascot, or colors. For some people, that's a buzzword for, you've got to do a callback cheer. Nope, you don't have to do a callback cheer. It doesn't say that. But it does say, if you're going to be out there representing your school, at least tell me who you are. Let me know who you are or who your mascot is or something. Okay? So if you're doing a competitive cheer, just make sure at some point in one of your sentences that you tell me you're from this school, or our mascot is this, or our colors are these. Okay? So make sure that you have that in there. Do you have to do all 3? Absolutely not. Can you? Sure. And if you do it a certain way and it's good, then that's going to help you. But you don't have to do all 3, but at least use one of them. Tell us who you are. Okay? That's part of this score. Also, another thing that's going to drive a lot of this score is clarity of words. Okay? And what this means is, whether you do, so if you like competition type cheers, so you're going to use a faster pace. That's perfectly fine, unless your pace is so fast that the clarity of words is lost. The officials have to at least understand what you're saying. So for some of you all now, you may have to go, you know what, we need to slow down half a count because I need to make sure the words are I'm able to understand the words. Because if the officials can't understand them, I'm not doing what's asked in this presentation of material, and I'm not going to score as high. Okay? So pace of the routine, of the cheer part, is extremely important. You can be too fast, and you can also be too slow. If you're doing a callback cheer, you can actually be too slow, and you actually start dragging, and you lose the energy. Okay, you lose that energy and excitement part, because you go too slow, you allow too much time between the words, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so you can be too fast or you can be too slow. Everybody cool on that part? Okay? Volume, obviously, that's self-explanatory. And the last part of this is use of crowd coverage. So you want your team to look as big as possible on the floor. The bigger they look, the more entertaining it is to watch. Or the bigger they look, the more effective they can be as a callback cheer. So it works either way. All right? And what you're wanting to think about is, I want to give the judges different visuals. So it's not just wide as in try to go 7 panels instead of 3. It's also depth. instead of staying on the back third of the mat, I'm going to spread them out this way. And in the front, they'll be lower. And maybe I'll have some level changes back here with some preps or some extensions or whatever, getting different people in different levels of height, okay? So now I'm giving myself a visual that makes my team look bigger. And when we show you some video, we'll show you some examples of this kind of stuff. So crowd coverage, pace, clarity of words, use something that tells me who you are. Those are the kind of things that we're looking for in presentation of material. Any questions on any of that? Is everybody comfortable with that 5 points? All right, you'll notice it didn't tell you how many to do of anything. It didn't tell you what kind of cheer to do. It just said, do these type of things with what you're doing. That's how you're going to score points. Okay? Motions. So on the motion part, it says use of motions to either lead the crowd response, which would include props, and or create visual interest. Execution of motions includes sharpness, placement, and synchronization. Pace comes back into play on this one. So if I'm doing a competition cheer and I get too fast, I'm probably my motions are probably flying. I'm not as sharp. You don't have enough time to stop and establish a motion before moving to the next piece. So you need to slow down slightly so that you can cover these things that it's saying about synchronization, motion placement, sharpness of the motions. Okay? So you need to keep that in mind. So here's where pace comes into play again on this. Now, in like a traditional callback cheer, most of the time you'll see high V, low V, punch motion T. Perfectly acceptable. It doesn't tell you you have to have 31 motions, 4 of them have to be high Vs, three-quarters of my team has to have a T at some, doesn't tell you any of that. Okay? So if you cheer in a callback cheer style and you want to use those traditional motions, more power to you, as long as you're doing what it asks. If you do a competitive cheer, a competition cheer, and you have a motion sequence, you might be throwing in K motions, diagonals, broken arrows, different motions like that. Perfectly fine. As long as motion, synchronization, sharpness of the motions, all of that is making sense so that you're getting as many points here as possible. Okay? Now, well, we'll talk about this at the very end. So that's the motions part. Everybody good on that? 5 points for motions. The props part of this, because it says props in here, that's like signs, palms, megaphones. Do you have to use them? Nope, doesn't say you have to use them. So if you're a team that doesn't like them, okay, that's fine. If you do use them, that's awesome. Make sure you're using them correctly. So for signs, a lot of people use signs as motions. You push them out, put them back. Push them up, put them back. Go to the side, come back. You got to be sharp when you're doing that. Okay, see how sharp that was? That was sharp. Thank you. I actually pulled a shoulder muscle just doing that motion there. But you have to be sharp with it. Use of palms. Palms can greatly increase the visual of like motion sequences, especially depending on what color palms, how they, what color or group of colors that are in your palms. For callback cheers, blue and whites, things like that. So there's multiple ways you can use it, but you don't have to. Okay? But if you do, make sure you use them correctly. All right? So that's all the motion stuff. 5 points. We good to move on? Awesome. The last 15 points deals with skills in some way. Okay? So the first is the 5-point category. It just says skills, and it's worth 5 points. This category says it's the effective use of skills to either enhance the cheer/response and or create visual interest that correlates to the words. Okay? So that's what's important about this. This is about how you use the skills, not how you performed them and not what skills you used, but how you used them. So, you're doing a callback type cheer. All right, I'm probably going to be doing some kind of levels with stunts so I can get signs in the air or palms in the air or girls with motions in the air. All right, so how I use those stunts is going to be important. Did I get the stunts up at the correct time? Did I put them up as the main word that was supposed to be responding? Or did I put them up before so the signs are already up there and the crowd can see the sign? Little things like that make a difference on how you use the skills. For tumbling in particular, a lot of times people will use tumbling, like say in a competitive cheer. They'll do tumbling where they don't overly worry about where they place it because they're not really doing callback type stuff. They're doing more sentence type cheers. And so they'll throw it and maybe stand up on a pause. Well, look at what you can do with your tumbling so that instead of doing that, I can be doing my tumbling during a certain part and then stand up sharp on a specific word that's most important within one of those sentences. All right, so if I'm talking about we're here to win and et cetera, then maybe win is the most important word. So the tucks will boom, win, come right up out of the tuck or the back handspring straight into a punch motion or into a motion to make it look like a bigger movement. Those type of things are what is important. So how you use the skills to correlate to the words in your cheer is what this 5 points is all about. And there's definitely ways to do it well or to kind of lose points because you're not really thinking, you're not planning fully ahead so that cradles happen on a certain word or a jump hits on a specific type word. That's what you're looking for. What am I trying to emphasize and then place my skills accordingly so that the movement of the skill emphasizes those specific words you're wanting to. Okay? So again, it has nothing to do with how you did the skills or what skills. It's about how you used them. That's what this 5 points is about. Is everybody comfortable with that one? Any questions on that part? Awesome. The last part is 10 points, and it's labeled execution. This one says how well the skills of the cheer are performed. Skills used are technically correct and strong. Synchronization, spacing, and overall skill level shown with stunts, motions, jumps, etc. Now, it does say motions in here. So let's say a team goes out and does no skills. Like I consider skills jumps, tumbling, baskets, pyramids, stunts. Let's say a team doesn't do any of those. You can still score a little bit of points because it does say motions, but you're not going to get a whole lot. Okay? So you as a coach, this is where you have the ability to emphasize what we're good at. So your team stunts really well, then you know what? I'm going to stay in the stunt world in this cheer because it doesn't tell me I can't. And it doesn't tell me I have to put in something else. It just tells me whatever I do is going to be judged on execution of it. So our team's good at stunting. We're going to stunt in this cheer. Our team's good at tumbling. I'm going to use a couple standing tumbling sequences. And I'm going to match them up with certain words. And I'm going to have them stand up right into motions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how I'm going to go after it. Or you may have a combination of both. So you may do a stunting group, and then the last part maybe do all standing backs or do some standing backs or back handsprings, whatever combination you want. But it doesn't tell you what you have to have. It doesn't outline it. This is where it makes sense for you to really think about the jumps and tumbling in particular and make sure you have it over in the music part because you don't have to have it in the cheer part. If you want to, because that's a strength, more power to you. If your jumping is awesome, then jump in the cheer, but you got to jump in the music or you won't get that 10 points, okay, or any part of it. All right? So that's all about here in talking about what skills should be used. That's up to you and what your strengths are. Now, the main part of this points is execution. On your all's website, there's a couple sheets that you guys will have access to. One of them is it's a really colorful grid. It has all kinds of colors on it. Everybody know which one I'm talking about? We'll get to that in a little while. On that sheet, though, also there's a box for indicators. All right, and basically what it is, it's what do the officials look for to evaluate the execution you did of skills. Okay, so there it is. So there's your stunt and pyramid execution indicators. I'm going to take you through the main ones right now so you as a coach can visually know what you should be looking for and how your stunts should look. And this is where execution versus difficulty starts coming into play. Okay? So, as an official, these are the main things to me. And again, I'm driven very much by the safety and the execution of skills. So, as a base, what I'm looking for, the number one thing I look for, because most stunts are multi-base, correct? I mean, some teams single base, but most stunts are multi-base. What I'm looking for, number one, on multi-base skills, I want the bases as close together as possible. That's the first thing I look for from an execution standpoint. If those two bases are close together, their arms are straight up through here, the weight goes down through the trunk of the body, they're in a strong, solid position to support weight. The more they get apart, the more it starts forming a triangle, the worse the execution gets, because now instead of using the trunk of my body, which is strongest, I'm putting more of the emphasis on arms and shoulder. If the stunt starts getting heavier, has a tendency to start wobbling or come down the middle. So how close they are together is very important, first thing I look at, especially in spinning stunts. When you start getting into full ups, 1.5 ups, especially 1.5 ups, double up, double and a quarters, where the bases have to turn, that's when they can get wide because they'll start stepping around in a circle, and the next thing you know, they've gone from here to here, okay? So that's one of the main things to look for. Also with the bases, I'm looking at their stance. I want them in a strong position to support weight. The more they start doing this in particular, the wider this gets, the more they start stunting like this, I'm now putting pressure on my low back, and I'm getting wide again. Because if the other base is doing that, we're spreading it out. Now my top is standing like this instead of like this, which is a better line. Okay, so I'm looking at the lines here. I want lines straight up and down. All right, that tells me they're in a position to support weight. Now, question comes up sometimes, well, I have a base that's 3 inches taller than the other base. What do I do? The onus is not just on the tall base to make the stunt work. So maybe the tall base adjusts their stance just a little bit. This is still a strong stance here. The other shorter base now shrugs her shoulders as much as she possibly can to get herself just a little bit higher, or maybe brings her stance in just a little bit more and makes another half-inch adjustment. And then maybe the top adjusts her hips just a little bit. Okay? It's not just this 3-inch taller person has to become 3 inches shorter, and so she stands like this. Okay, it's a combination. That's how you want to look at that as a coach if you happen to be in that position. I highly recommend whenever possible to go same height. Whenever you have the tallest person, try to put them in the back. That way they can reach over top of your 2 shorter bases to assist. But if you don't have that luxury, that's how you make adjustments. Okay? The last thing for bases is I'm always looking for them in extended stunts that they're always pushing through their shoulders. A lot of times bases will hit to the top, they'll relax their shoulders, and as soon as they do, their hips get loose, and they go into this position here. They go into this position here, then what do? They start stepping back because they're feeling off balance, and now we're in this whole bad position again. So I'm going to be driving through my shoulders, whether I'm doing up and overs, whether I'm spinning down, I'm still going to resist up, and you visually can see that, okay? So that's what I'm looking for with the bases. For your tops, obviously flexibility is going to be one of the main things that's evaluated. Hill stretches, scorpions, needles, overextended, scales, etc. Okay? But also with the tops, the 2 things I'm really looking at is, number 1, I want to see them control their weight through their arms. And an easy way to see this is if you're doing double base stunts, let's say they jump into a load or they walk in for a 1-foot whatever. If the bases stand up and they are in this kind of position, then more than likely the tops are not putting their weight in their arms. Instead, they're heavy in their feet because the bases couldn't stand up like this because it was heavy. So that tells me visually they're probably not here in this position. They're probably more relaxed here. Maybe their elbows are up as well. So I'm putting more of my weight in the hands of the bases. If a base stands up like this, more than likely the weight were in the arms because now it's lighter in the hands, so I'm able to follow through with the momentum. So I'm visually looking for that. How fast they get up off the ground. That's important, all right, for your stunts, especially if you're going straight to extensions, if you're spinning as you're going up, etc. Speed off the ground is probably one of the most important things. With the tops, I'm also looking here, the same thing with the shoulders. When they get to whatever extended or prep level, I want them to be lifting through their shoulders. If they relax their shoulders, their hips also get loose, and you'll notice it sometimes because the bases will start making these little adjustments because the top's gotten loose, so now they're doing a little bit of this. Okay? So visually, an official can see a lot of these. Visually, you should be looking for these and cleaning it up. Sometimes that means going back a level in skills until they either have their timing technique better or physical strength and flexibility is better. You as a coach will decide that. You're the adult in the room. Okay? You're like, oh my God, I am the adult in the room. Yes, you are the adult in the room. You're the coach. Okay? So keep that in mind. Everybody comfortable with the execution? Now, the last part of this 10 points though, there's a line in here that says, overall skill level shown. This is where difficulty can come into play. We don't want to overly emphasize difficulty, but this is where teams can get rewarded because you're going to be looking for the overall ability level of the team. Now, does that mean, oh gosh, I have to show one of everything so I show my overall ability level? No. As a matter of fact, if you tried to do a cheer with a pyramid, a stunt, a tumbling, a jump, and a basket toss, it would first of all probably be very hectic. They would be exhausted after 35 seconds. And you would have not been able to probably build any points in motions and in voice. because you would have always been incorporating, so the voices would have always been low, and you would have had no time to do motions except for the 2 or 3 people in a stunt. And depending on the pyramid, they maybe couldn't do any. So if I think, wow, I've got 12 kids, I can do a brace flip, I'm going to do a brace flip in this cheer. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense, even though it can be a difficult skill. Because if it takes 12 people, and I take all 12 and set them up, well, some of my bases are facing each other, they're not looking at you. The tops may be looking away, depending on how they're going to load in with a half around or 1.5 or whatever. And as they're building, all the voices are going to drop. So now you may be building up in your difficulty part, but you're losing in 2 other categories. No motions, and voice goes down. So think about the skills that make the most sense that are also can be difficult. Single type skills make a lot of sense, like single stunt skills, not single base, just stunting. All right? Or ending in a pyramid visual that's facing the front and it connects, that makes sense. Okay? But you want to be in some type of skill where at least some of the tops can still do motions, because then that continues to help you on the motion side. And you're still able to project some of your voice because you've got people looking at the crowd. Okay? Also, going back to like that 12-person example. So let's say you've got 12 on your team, you've got 2 pull-ups. Okay? And and then the other 4 are great kids, good school, good grades, but not a lot of skill. Okay? So what do? Well, what a lot of people would do in the music part is they would hide them. All right? So here we go, I've got my tumblers. Okay, you 8, you're going to set up here. You 4 that don't have the tumbling, you're in the back row. Everybody cleans on 3. You're going to set on 5. People in the back row, you're going to nugget on 7. Wait. Stand up when the tucks do. Sometimes that makes sense in music, but it never makes sense in cheer, because in cheer, you have other things that are being judged that are not judged in the music. In particular, motions and voice or pace. So I've got my 2 stunt groups. They're getting ready to go. These 4, I'm going to put them in the windows or out front. I'm going to make a formation with them. I'm going to have them with palms or whatever. While this building's going on, they can help keep the voice up. They can help control the pace. And they can keep building motions by doing motions on the ground. So it never makes sense in a cheer to hide anyone, because they can, no matter their skill level, they can be helping you in one of these categories to continue building points. Okay? Does that make sense for everybody? So, that last little piece with the difficulty, again, you don't have to do everything. If my team's really good at stunting, I'm probably going to do a lot of stunting. If I've got multiple skills, maybe I do one stunt sequence and maybe I start out the cheer with some standing backs and they stand up into something, then we do some motions, move in, change our formation, then put up some stunts that give me some levels, low prep level, extended level. All right? But ultimately, if a team comes out and puts up 5 extensions and they're awesome and the lines are perfect, and the next team comes out and puts up 5 full-ups and they're awesome and their lines are perfect, they're going to beat you. They're just better than you. And no rubric in the world is going to help you with that. Okay? So keep that in mind. Ultimately, you should be doing what you can do best. And if that means another team is going to beat you, then it means they're better than you right now. And that's okay. All right? I give this example all the time. I cheered at the University of Kentucky. Have I mentioned I go to Kentucky? I can't believe I haven't. I usually mention that 10, 12 times. Anyway, I graduated from Kentucky. I used to cheer there. And Kentucky is known for being very good in cheerleading. Okay? And a lot of years, we'll go down to nationals, and there'll be a bunch of other teams, and they'll put together their routines because they are trying to beat Kentucky, and so they'll try to do what Kentucky does. Well, guess what they do? They fall everywhere because they can't do what Kentucky does. Okay? Some of these teams can't. What they should have done is do the best they can, and if Kentucky has an issue, you're now in a position to beat them. But if you try to beat the teams that are the best teams and you're not there yet, you're only setting yourself up to fall, and so you're not going to win even if they do. But if they have an issue and you're doing the best you can, then you're in the best position possible to place as high as possible. Okay? That's how you should be looking at difficulty in this. That's how you should be looking at difficulty when Josh starts talking about it in partner stunts and pyramids and tumbling as well. Okay? Everybody understand that picture. Awesome.